All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Tonight we have all of the breaking world events, plus more, so stick around. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today we have a ton to cover in a short amount of time, so if someone shared our show with you, remember you can always go over to marfooglenews.com, and every single article, picture, tweet, video, document, archived article that we put in there is all going to be over there in a bibliography over on marfooglenews.com. Now you will also see it is all organized by thumbnail, so you will look for today's thumbnail, which is power. We have taken it for granted. Once you click on that thumbnail, it will bring you to every single article, tweet, video, picture that we have. Not only that, there is a yellow bar. Once you hit that, that is a web-only content warning. That is essentially telling you that this is too hot for TV or too far to one direction for us to cover and stay on any of the platforms. So lots of things going on down there. There's an entire other show. On the right side, if you do want to support us, or if you're already planning on preparing, you can go over to the right side and go through any of our affiliates, like, of course, EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply, and, of course, Energy to get a solar generator. All right, let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
So thank you, Angie Smith, Texas Mom, Red Cedar Lake, for subscribing before the show. Thank you, everybody. Anne Marie O'Brien, thank you for subscribing about 30 seconds ago. I appreciate everybody that's new. So welcome, Anne, Texas Mom, and Angie Smith. Let's get right into the news. We have, of course, alien drone swarm form giant hovering QR code over Austin to promote Halo. Of course, most of you know what Halo is. Most of you played it on the original Xbox and even more. It says, I got scared and ran inside. Texas locals were variously freaked out. It says annoyed or impressed by a 600-foot wide drone swarm marketing stunt. It says that this is what an alien invasion from a marketing department looks like. An eerie swarm of purple lights amassed in the skies over downtown Austin, Texas, Sunday evening. 400 drones were suspended over the city during the South by Southwest Festival to form a giant hovering QR code. It says the dystopic yet impressive stunt was to Paramount. It's promote its upcoming sci-fi series Halo, based on the popular Xbox game about a warrior fighting off an alien invasion. So it was actually a display that was over 300 feet tall. We have a picture of it here, so let me just show you. This is what it looked like. Now, some people are obviously saying that this is just absolutely terrifying because we are going into the next generation of terrifyingly very accurate drone technology. So if you've played, there's a few games out there, and there's, of course, a ton of movies that show drones essentially monitoring the future. In a game, I want to say it is Watch Dogs, and it is Watch Dogs like in London, set in London. It shows in the game that all of these different drones are watching over the city, and there's different drones for different things. There's delivery drones, there's police drones, there's fire drones. There is, of course, media drones, traffic drones, all these drones flying around the city. Now, that is actually something that all of the world is setting up for. They have actually basically changed the whole commercial drone business and even the private enterprise of droning, and anybody that actually owns, say, a Mavic Pro or does it for fun knows that all of this is coming because they are changing the FAA rules, they are changing all of these things, and they are making it harder and harder as a private flyer to actually fly your drone. At one point, I mean, you have to actually get technically a pilot's license to get your actual commercial license to fly drones. And in the future, I believe unless you are a company, it is going to be incredibly hard or even nil existent to drive one of these. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is I tried this QR code. I wasn't there, obviously. I just did it off the screen, but it actually works. So I'm assuming it would work for people that, held their phone up to it in the sky, only if they were in one direction. Down from its projection. Obviously, if you're on the side of it, you're not going to really see much, or if you're behind it, it's not going to work because it's inverted. But the QR code actually worked.
Well, I don't know about that. They probably could make it work from either side if they just flipped it, right? Aren't QR?
Well, they'd have to make two, I guess, because if you look on that on the other side, it's inverted. And I was just looking at the specs on QR codes; they don't work inverted. So,
Well, either way, that's pretty nuts. And this is just the beginning of what they will see. I mean, this is just regular, white lights on these drones. But think about this in a sense, if an enemy had this and had weapons on these. With this kind of organization and this kind of ability, think about how that would be if that was an enemy's weapon. And then we have Germany to buy dozens of U.S. fighter jets in a spending spree. So these are all signs that something bigger is coming. That is my opinion. It shows that the world is preparing for something bigger than what is going on right now. It says the F-35 jets made by Lockheed Martin would replace Germany's decades-old Tornado fleet, according to media reports confirmed by the source. Tornadoes are the only Luftwaffe planes capable of carrying U.S. nuclear boom booms stationed in Germany and are a key part of NATO deterrence. It says Lockheed F-35 stealth jets are considered the most modern aircraft in the world, and their unique shape and coating make them harder to detect by enemy radar. The additional Eurofighter jets Germany plans to purchase, made by a consortium that includes Airbus, would reportedly be used for other operations, including escort missions and electronic warfare like jamming enemy air defense systems. In a landmark speech this late last month, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz pledged to invest an extra 100 billion euros, or about $112 billion, in the nation's chronically underfunded Bundeswehr armed forces. It says the spending boost marks a major reversal for Europe's top economy, upending its policy of keeping a low military profile, in part out of guilt over WW2. So you have Germany, which of course was home of the Nazis back in the day, now are, on the good side of things, and now they are all of a sudden just busting out a gigantic military budget. So this, on top of, say, when we covered Japan, effectively changing their constitution to, instead of only using their military for defensive reasons, but now they're going to change it to where they can go out and fight a conflict if they want to fight a conflict. It is, and then of course Switzerland and other neutral countries actually switching and being a part of these events that are going on right now is really, really historic. Dex, wouldn't you say that we've of course seen Finland and all of these different places jump into this that normally you wouldn't even think would even be a part of it?
Well, yeah, you certainly see these actions are not the typical actions you would have seen by these countries during what would have been normal peacetime. Obviously, the world is in a much different place right now, with all of the tension in Europe and the potential tension in Taiwan. I think we're seeing everyone make new decisions that are drastically different than what we've seen in the last 20, 30 years.
One thing I wanted to point out, and we were talking about this earlier, and I'm sure most of you noticed this, but the last 2.5 years of events that have happened, right? The thing that started in 2019 and went up until basically a few weeks ago. Does anybody else kind of notice that right after Joe Rogan, who has one of the largest, audiences in the world, had several people in a row that essentially kind of busted open a lot of topics that were taboo. After that, it was like all of a sudden, and then having Sanjay Gupta on there from, of course, the 3-letter agency, starting with a C and ending with an NN. After having him on, it's like, boom. Does anybody think that he may have taken it down a notch, like him directly being responsible for almost like canceled plans, right? It seems very very timely that after that, it's just within a couple months, it's like now we're into this. I think it's kind of crazy because he had several people on that were essentially, totally banned, and they were on his show, and then all of a sudden he had that landmark moment with Sanjay and had him admit certain things, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to think about our show when you're doing that. I appreciate everybody because you guys are a part of this. Lisa Soul Level Healing says, I purchased EMP Shield Marv for my camper van. I'm a van life prepper, and it's both a bug out vehicle and self-contained stealth bug out shelter. Hey, thank you, Lisa, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure it was easy to do, unless you were doing it to your generator. I think that would be just as easy. But thank you. And then Global Witness, Supper Adam, and other channels that work hard to continue this work. Hey, Global, and thank you for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. I have to get it back in hold of you again. Our chat the other day was really, really good. Thank you. And I actually mentioned you quite a few times over that same conversation. That was a kind of an eye-opener for me. And then Angie Smith, thank you. Simply Pony, Texas Mom, again, thank you, everybody that has just subscribed. And then what do you think about the Germans buying all of these jets? All of a sudden, on top of, 16 different countries now upping their budgets? China claims it's captured NSA spy tool dubbed Trojan Horse that can control the global internet equipment and steal info. So I covered this over on Marfoogle News earlier, and most of you that have already checked that out already know about this, but this is definitely worth knowing, and this is definitely worth sharing out with people. So now China claims to have captured a U.S. National Security Agency spy tool dubbed Trojan Horse that can allegedly control global internet equipment and steal information. The alleged NSA spy tool is capable of lurking in a victim's computer and access sensitive information, according to the Chinese outlet Global Times. A report obtained by the outlet from National Computer Virus Emergency Response Center claims the dubbed Trojan Horse, or NoPen, is a remote control tool for Unix or Linux computer systems. According to the outlet, the tool is mainly used to steal files, access systems, redirect network communication, and view a target's device information. The spy system has reportedly controlled global internet equipment and stole large amounts of users' information. Cybersecurity experts told the outlet that once the Trojan is planted into a victim's computer, it would become a lurker, waiting for the code and opening the vault door for hackers. It says the tool can allegedly turn a victim's computer into a bridge tower, allowing hackers to go deeper into the group where the victim works and grasp the company's information. Despite the claims, there has been no confirmation by U.S. officials on the alleged hack. Now, you could look at this both ways. You could say, okay, China's lying, or you could say U.S. is not going to tell us if this existed because it's really, really messed up. In the first place, if we had something like this, which I guarantee we do, they would not be talking about it, and they would not tell us about it. One thing that I just find is just like kind of a punch in the face is that they literally called it Trojan Horse, if that's what it really is called. Almost sounds like bad translation, like maybe China's like, oh, let's call it Trojan Horse. If they are lying, then, they would just make up some name they think, but it's like everybody would think it was named that, right? We've all heard about Trojan viruses. It says more to follow. Let's see here. So actually, that's it. So what do you guys think about this as far as this event here? If this is true, Dex, what kind of implications could this have as far as us.
Yeah,
and
I guess it
regular
comes
people.
down to if they found it and can use it versus just finding it and maybe protecting themselves against it, right? If they're able to use it, then that just takes and gives them a power that they probably didn't have, at least at that same level before, right? It's that would be the extreme.
Well, think about it. If they then could use that against us, use it against our military units or all of our branches of military. We, of course, had solar winds happen last year. That almost kind of makes me think that this might have been a find in the solar winds, or this is a result of solar winds. Like solar winds opened a lot of doors. Maybe that kind of confirms that maybe China was behind the solar winds attack, which mostly they say was, a lot of people say it's Russia. But now Russia and China are besties, so we'll see. And then we spoke of this earlier, nuclear war within realm of possibility, UN Secretary General warns. It says William Taylor, former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, talked with America Reports about the Russian attack on a military base near the Polish border. Russia using nuclear weapons during its assault on Ukraine is, quote, within the realm of possibility. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned Monday. Guterres told reporters that Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision early on in the invasion to put his nuclear forces on high alert was a bone-chilling development. So one thing is so he's bringing this up later, 2 weeks after they end up putting their nuclear, forces on alert. And most of that, you would see a lot of the media talking about that before they did that. Russia said that they did that in response to harsh words by NATO. And we, in fact, many of our military groups say that our forces actually went up a notch as far as readiness. We, as civilians, we hear a lot of things like they're upping the readiness. In fact, before this invasion, we heard things like, oh, they're at 7 days to deploy, or that's been moved up to 6 days to deploy, and now it's really an emergency and it's 4 days to deploy. We heard these things, and to us it sounds like, okay, so they're still not deploying. It's just saying that they're higher readiness. How do you make yourself even more ready? Do you open your eyes even wider? But it means that they have more in place, and they have more systems basically on and ready to go. Is this something to scare the world? Specifically, the Secretary General of the United Nations saying this is a big deal technically. So for him to say the prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility, he said. It is time to stop the horror unleashed on the people of Ukraine and get to the path of diplomacy and peace. So one thing to think about is this is going to emotionally affect people. This is going to grab people and say, hey, it's going to shake them and get them on Ukraine's side. Of course, you see a lot of Ganda. Dex?
Well, Adam, he also made a statement that was akin to saying that they need to safeguard all of the nuclear facilities in Ukraine, and then announced that they were sending money in. But I think what we need to think about is what the UN could or couldn't do. And if the UN wants to take it a step further after going off of this initiative of saying we should secure the facilities, if let's say they decide to roll in UN peacekeepers in to do that, what would that do? What kind of escalation would that create for the conflict that's going on there between Russia and Ukraine? And would they see that as an outside force coming in? He didn't say that they were actually going to do that, but he said that they were calling for safeguarding of the nuclear facilities. So I think that you can imply that they have that thought, right? Or at least that's a discussion they'll probably have as this continues to expand.
Now, did you see that there were? I don't know if I sent it to you. Do we have the other piece about the other nuclear plant in Ukraine? If we don't, can you look that piece up?
I'll find it.
It was another nuclear plant that may have been affected. And then let's see here. So, yeah, what do you think about this? Let me know in the chat below. It's definitely, it's more of one thing, if Global Witness is still here, one thing that he said that makes a whole lot of sense, and everybody can probably, definitely relate to is for the last 2.5 years, we've been lied to nonstop. And it's the same people that have lied to us just nonstop about everything. Those are the same people involved here. And everybody is going, okay, yeah, I believe you. So most of us need to be very discerning right now, no matter what angle the information comes from. Mind you, one of the angles of the information is now way harder to even attain. Certain countries can't even get their information out right now. So it's pretty scary to say that, there's entire countries that are basically canceled. Speaking of cancel culture, though, if you guys haven't been on Twitter, Howard Stern, who I listened to when I was a teenager because he was crass and just, made these just absurd jokes. A new old video came out about him, and now they're trying to cancel him. Go over to Twitter. I will try to send the link after the show, and I'll try to put it on our website. There's a really rough video of him, and I can't even believe it exists. But most likely he will also be canceled. I definitely want to bring this up right now while we can. Just a quick plug for EMP Shield. Again, this is a company not only do we believe in, but we believe will save lives. If you do not know what this is, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. This can protect any kind of device that you want to keep running after an EMP. They most likely make something to protect it. EMP Shield is used by agencies like DoD, DHS, and of course on the DEMSO team to protect the Texas grid. This can protect against multiple phases, all 3 phases of an EMP, E1, E2, and E3. And it can do it multiple times with zero degradation. They tested it up. It was like up to 41 or 42 times with zero degradation to the unit. So EMP, how it works, it will be in pulses. It's definitely an amazing protection device. It also protects against the future Carrington level event or plus. A solar flare or CME that is going to hit at some point. We know that it happens on average every 150 years. It's been 160 years since the last one. And they say that if it happened right now while we're still vulnerable, it could wreak havoc on our power grids and electrical systems, GPS, communications. In fact, they said if our entire grid goes down, 90% of us would perish because of a lack of drinkable, potable water. So everybody needs to have food, water, and then, of course, power solution. If you have generators, solar generators, if you have food stocked up, that is something that all preppers have at this point. And most of us are looking at what is happening around the world and saying it's not getting better. So if you want to protect yourself, they make a device for pretty much anything that you want to keep running, from your car, which is about 10 minutes to put in your car, to a van, if you're a van lifer, house, generator. If you want to protect your solar system, you can do that as well. marfooglenews.com/EMP will get you $50 off per device, and it will help our small independent news agency at the same time. Thank you, everybody that has gone over there prior and in the future. Thank you so much. That's, again, marfooglenews.com/EMP. All right, and then Russians cross Mexico border to seek U.S. asylum. Dex, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So apparently a lot of people from Russia are flying into Cancun and then working their way up and to Tijuana and then getting a car, sometimes pooling together to buy a car and then coming across the border and in the process seeking asylum here. It's enough that it's newsworthy in the sense that there's enough doing it. There's also Ukrainians doing it too. I also think, though, that, as we've discussed the people that do come across our borders in the past, especially when we've talked about potential adversaries using that as a means to enter our country. We've seen it with other adversaries. It's interesting. Now, I'm not saying that all Russians coming across the border are adversaries. They're probably just people literally seeking asylum and trying to get out of their country for whatever reason. They have, connections or ties that they need to be out of their country, right? But there's also that risk that goes along with it, that, if the vetting isn't done correctly, or if someone slips through the cracks, does someone enter our country that we wouldn't want here because they are an adversary and they are planning to do something that wouldn't be good for us.
Well, one thing I think of is, I wonder if any of these Russians know something that, we don't? Is there going to be something that's directly going to affect Russia? They are claiming asylum here. They're saying, hey, my country, things are really bad. I wonder, how bad is it in Russia right now as a citizen? Obviously, they don't have anybody invading them as of now, right? So is it because now their internet is, they basically can't access a bunch of things? A lot of the countries around the world are not letting Russia do pretty much, anything in their country. So I wonder if some of these Russians know something that we don't, or if they believe something is going to happen next, if they believe that they are going to be, fighting on their home soil at some point. I just wonder if you know any information, or if you have family in Russia and know about this scenario, and if you have some sort of angle that you want to let us know about, email me at adam@marfooglenews.com or dex, D-E-X, @marfooglenews.com. Love to hear from you guys. So, and then we have U.S. holds an intense 7-hour talk with China amid Russia's war in Ukraine. So, you have, of course, U.S. saying that China, or the U.S. saying that essentially Russia is asking China for aid and supplies. At the same time, we are doing this 7-hour talk. It's kind of funny timing. It says officials from the United States and China met on Monday to discuss a range of challenges facing their bilateral relationship, including Russia's ongoing conflict in Ukraine. It says a senior administration official described the talks, which were held in Rome, as intense and spanning at least 7 hours. The official, who spoke to reporters on the condition of anonymity, said that B's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, conveyed to China's top diplomat, Yang Jiechi, that the U.S. is concerned that Beijing may attempt to help Russia blunt global sanctions. It's like, well, no duh. You don't need a top national security advisor to know that. We've known that for a while now. We knew that China would actually help Russia overcome this. They said it before. They said it like 4 or 5 months ago in a casual way before any of this went down. They said that they were no limits partners, and they would help each other through all of anything. If there was ever a conflict, they said that they would help each other out. So I don't think you really need this kind of press release to figure that one out. It says, what would I say in general is that we do have deep concerns about China's alignment with Russia. The official said the national security advisor was direct about those concerns and the potential implications and consequences of certain actions. Sullivan's trip comes on the heels of reports that Moscow requested that China provide military equipment for its conflict in Ukraine. The official downplayed the timing of the trip when pressed by reporters. It said this meeting had been planned for some time, the official said, adding that schedules were coordinated between U.S. and Chinese officials last fall. So it seems to me like every single time it's just a happy coincidence that it just so happens to be. It's always planned way, way long ago. And this was already planned on happening. How much do we think, how much do we believe them in these cases?
Well, does that tell us that they had planned that this would happen now, last fall, and they knew they were going to need a meeting?
Right. Does that mean that they were setting this up a year in advance? It says Beijing has denied reports that it was asked by Moscow for military equipment or for any assistance. There's multiple ways to look at this. There's a million ways you could look at this, but one thing is it could be Ganda to make Russia look like it's just completely failing. Everything we see just doesn't make sense as far as historically Russia or, militarily, that's one of their strongest points. They don't have a ton of GDP. They don't have, they don't have the tech central of the world. They don't have many things that they can really brag about besides a huge and really strong military. And what is happening right now? Well, our information, and again, now we can't get other information from their country. That's being cut out or blocked or censored. So it's like, how do we know that they are really failing? Well, Ukrainian officials and legacy media. And by now, a lot of people are really having doubts about what is happening. It's up to everybody to be discerning on everything that's happening right now, but it's definitely something is fishy here. So that meeting took place, and then weapons shipments are now in Russia's crosshairs after missiles hit the Ukrainian border base. Before I hit that, I do want to say thank you to Bible Talk 777. Says, love to the Foogle fam mods and Adam and Dex. Adam, you need to make a whole online album. You're good at it and love the beats and lyrics. Hey, Bible Talk, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for supporting Independent. And then Irish Rebel, once again, like I said, you don't have to do that. I really do appreciate your support. I really fear our government is understanding the Russian military from their rhetoric, or they are really worried about them and just trying to keep things positive. So Irish Rebel, one of my thoughts in the back of my head, and I feel like they're trying to not make anyone panic. Like if everyone in the United States is all over Twitter, every social media saying, oh, they can't, get their hand out of their butts, right? And they just can't figure anything out. And they're failing everything they're doing. And now they're begging for help from China. It makes them seem very, very weak. But that is part of Ganda. I mean, like, that is obvious, conflict time Ganda. How would it not be? Right now, Russia's doing the same thing, saying that we are weak, and China's doing the same thing. Jay Whites, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. And Xavier Smith, thank you for the support. Thank you for supporting Independent with, looks like a super sticker. Thank you. So the cruise missile strike, alarmingly close to the Polish border. I covered that when it first came out. It comes a day after Russia warned it considers arms shipments to be legitimate targets. It says serious damage and casualties have been reported after a missile strike at a Ukrainian military base less than 20 kilometers from the Polish border on Sunday. Now, when I tweeted this out, the point why this is scary is because it is so close to that Polish border. We, of course, have watched and covered as Poland and other countries are having a heavy presence of almost every NATO ally loading up militaries on their borders. So if that was just 20 kilometers over, it could have very well hit, 1,000 troops or something. It says the strike, which took out the lives of 35 and left 134 wounded, supposedly. Russia claims 180 foreign mercenaries were perished forcefully in the strike. Came within hours of Russia's threatening to attack arms shipments to Ukraine. Essentially, anybody who was sending them arms shipments, they would then attack those shipments. 8 Russian missiles hit the International Center for Peacekeeping and Security northeast of Yavoriv, Ukraine, just before dawn, according to the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The attack was part of a larger raid on West Ukraine. The damage appeared widespread, according to the reports on the ground, with the large columns of smoke rising over the horizon and devastation seen on the base's perimeter. So, Dex, one thing I think of is was this a message? Were they hitting it right next to the border on purpose to say, like, hey, we're, step over that line and we'll get you? Or what do you think this was? This was a very targeted strike?
I totally think this goes to the hand that we've said that if we send equipment in, that they're going to say that that's an act against them and they're going to take action, right? So this is their action. But the other thing that gets me wondering is who was there, right? Who was involved in the location that they took out, right? So in other words, if arms are coming across a border, it's not like they just, I guess they could take them to the edge of the border and then someone else could pick them up. Or does someone drive them all the way across into a destination? And if it is, who is that someone? It's probably not, a random truck driver. It's probably somebody with some experience and protection. And, what nation do they come from? And are they organized in part of a military, or are they, contractors, or what? Right. And so I think that there is an interesting question that who might be, and they alluded to mercenaries, but, who was it that was actually bringing them over?
Well, we probably won't know. And as Ninja Squirrel said, do not believe anything. Instead, question everything. Just so you guys know, that's why we have said over and over that even our high up military ranking members, our high ranking military members, we have questioned if they were told things, so then they spread stuff around. You have to understand from the very top, they know how information gets out. They know how it spreads. They know how the game of telephone works. They know how to cause panic. They know how to quell panic. They know how to cause fear. They know how to quell fear. So when you have all of this information coming out and just nonstop, and they have control over every avenue of how it goes out, or essentially they do, stuff like what we are saying, it's like they have ways to minimize it. They have ways to not let it out. I say question absolutely everything, including anything that, is coming from outside of your house. If it is not inside your house, if it's not your wife or your husband saying to you, hello, I'm here this morning, then you should be questioning it right now. That is definitely a great point. Because we don't know, they could be looking at the alternative news. More people are turning to alternative news like us and other channels like us than they are to mainstream legacy medias. There's a few shows that stand out that have millions of viewers, but the rest are down in like the 50, 60,000 people watching per show, which is insane because that's what we're doing with, two guys and two computers, right? So you have to look at it that way. They could be funneling information through people that are fans of these kind of things and having that information out. That's why I am really, really discerning of when I see like somebody say, I got a message and it said this. I hope those people are being careful to vet that information and to really look into it very deep, because it's very scary how fast information can spread right now. As far as this, anything that comes from mainstream, you need to try to discern the patterns, and not so much the information, but the patterns of what is happening, what is subconsciously being put in your head. When you read an article, any article, what is being put in your head? Think about what you think when you read an article. Don't so much think about the content. Think, what do you think because of that article? Because it's all about how they can place things in the back of your head for later. They can plant a seed. When they plant a seed, it grows. And if they can plant just tiny seeds, and they know that people talk to other people at work. They spread it around. They share it on Facebook. Some of this is purposely being allowed to be shared. Notice how all of the very so against community guidelines videos of horrific scenes, as far as, them striking the Russian convoys and things, they will let them show the video with, these scenes of bodies and things like this. They'll let that be shared all over and go trending like crazy. But then again, they won't show, somebody getting punched in the face. They definitely won't show somebody's opinion. They'll censor that before they censor a video that obviously shows a horrific event. Think about that. Why are they letting it trend? They want you to see it. Stephen McMahon, if Putin is Schwab boy, and Schwab said he was this all a ballet, the elite oligarch's intent on extermination. So everybody talks about how he was a young leader's person in the WEF. Think about this. What if he's getting booted out? What if they are... Think about how dirty that club must be. Like, if you do the wrong thing, they probably just dump you off on the side of the street. What if they are dumping Putin off on the side of the street, saying, we don't want you anymore? And he knows it, so now he's doing whatever he can to go back. Like I said, I question everything. Bones and Tubbs Show, all the prayers and love. Keep up the great work, Adam and Dex and fam. Hey, Bones and Tubbs Show, thank you, and I hope you're still creating and making tons of videos. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And then we have India looks to bail out Russia as it considers taking up Moscow's offers to buy crude oil at discount. Dex,
you called this, right? You were saying what was going to happen, and like why right now we're worried about China. The U.S. government is worried about China helping Russia circumvent the sanctions, but here it is. India is saying, "Yeah, I'll take cheap oil. Give it to us."
Yep. And I said watch India because India was drilling with Russia. India has all of a sudden since 2017 joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Financially tied very closely with China, but also very closely tied with Russia. And Russia is best no limits partners with China. So the three of them, if China just said, hey, we're going to give you Tibet back, we're going to give you the Himalayas, but you need to play this bigger part in us, and we're going to take over the world, and we'll split it three ways. I know this sounds crazy, but there's probably conversations like this at some point. If they could have Tibet back, and if they could have this border that they've been fighting with for decades and decades and decades, where there is no official border, it's been moving back and forth, they both claim it. People say, oh, China and India are these horrible, horrific enemies. They've been working together for years now, financially very close, but also militarily. I told you that India joined Russia and China in Navy drills. Think about that. If you have 1.4 billion people country join another country of 1.4 billion, both nuclear powers join Russia, then you have half of the world's population against us. Think the India's standing army and China's standing army, Russia's standing army, and then of course some of these other outliers like NK and the I country and all these, they might have their separate differences, but if they go up against us, it would be a really big deal. Dex?
Oh, sorry, Adam. Here's another fact that goes hand in hand with this. The largest countries of oil consumption are the U.S., obviously, followed by China, followed by India, then Japan and Russia, and then it goes on, right? But if you just took China, India, and Russia, and the consumption of oil, it's like 19 million, whatever the number is. I don't know if these are barrels or whatnot, but it's where the U.S. is 19.6. Those three countries combined is 19.8. So they could actually consume more oil. Now why that matters is when you think of the petrodollar. If those three countries got together and said, we will buy oil from each other and we'll trade it in a different denomination than the US dollar, especially buying from Russia and then the other allies of Russia, like the I country that goes with Rand to the store, right? And others. And you know that as soon as they do something around pricing, that they're going to get others to consume from them, right? Especially if they have a better deal or a better price. That is probably one of the key tickets of India and Russia forming together to be able to go after the petrodollar and remove the U.S. dollar as the global currency.
Dex, you're cutting out. Hold. Can you?
I must have been saying something really good.
Yeah, can you repeat that last sentence?
Yeah, I was saying if those three countries got together, that could be the key to bringing about the end of the petrodollar, because they would be able to consume enough and they also produce, so they would be able to control and bring about a change to how they sell and reconcile, I guess I should say is the right word, the money, which is always reconciled in US dollars, to reconcile it in another currency that they all agree upon.
Well, it would not be a good situation. Let's go over to chat and see what chat is saying. Let's go over here. Miss Dragon, much love everyone from Eastern Washington. Daryl Cahoon, Kings from the East. Mandy May says solar flare action. So we covered that days ago. We actually have pieces that are saying several storms are going to be hitting this week. This is only the beginning, and my belief is we're going to have many more solar events. I never like saying definite things, but in that case, I believe that most of us know that the solar cycle 25 is going to be very bad. That's why many of us are preparing for it as far as we're looking at it in the same way we would look at an EMP if anything like that happens. Some decent quakes too, says Twisted Luck Truth. By the way, Twisted Luck has been doing great job doing videos. Make sure to go check them out. Conquer Your Future says Genoese and Venetian merchants backed by the Islamic Ottoman Caliphate controlled this trade from Crimea to Western Europe. Conquer Your Future I would love to see information. Send me stuff on email. Mark Hall, All Nations Go Against is. Definitely, we have stuff on that later, which I'm going to show a couple of country names, and then I'm going to tell you what we're going to replace those with so everybody can understand the last part of this show. We have a lot of stuff regarding that. Let's see here. Janie Erickson. Yes, solar and weather warfare. Thank you, by the way, Jan Erickson. I think that's Jan or Janie. Thank you so much. For everybody that's like trying to do the same thing we do on the show, thank you for doing that. Also, thank the mods. They're doing an awesome job, especially both platforms, DLive and on YouTube. Everybody is just doing a lovely job modding, so thank you. And then over on DLive, we have Zippy Moons, Groovy Grandma, and J-Girl, that's me, Marf, Dex, Mods, and the Foogle fam. Lots of love, Marfy and Dex from Alberta, Canada, Groovy Grandma. Thank you. And then Stormblade X69, Respiratory Jane, really, we have Nick 52182 and Chevy Mike. Chance Paladin, thank you for modding. Gem. If you're in the house, Rhett Walker and Wonder Woman, Lead Dispenser and Recalcitrant. Thank you everybody that's popped in. Big Kahuna just followed. That's awesome. You don't hear about the Big Kahuna anymore. And then I'm in the doghouse. Though I'm going to listen till I fall asleep. I'll catch a replay tomorrow. Zippy Moons, I'll see you tomorrow, and thank you for stopping in if you're not already catching Z's already. Speaking of catching Z's, you might sleep easier if you do have some sort of prep setup. Most of you already know, and most of you already have something, but if you don't have any long-term survival food, pretty much don't have to tell you why you would need it right now. There's obviously many things going on around the world as far as geopolitical events that people need to be paying attention to. But I highly recommend, if you don't go through us, make sure to do any kind of do-it-yourself method to do this. You can go to marfooglenews.com/prep if you just want to get it done. They are fast, and they have pretty much everything in stock. So you can actually get all sorts of different long-term survival food in a bucket. They store well. Again, you can store it back and then use it for a rainy day. Of course, prices are only going to go up. So with hyperinflation possibly coming and just regular inflation going insane, it is definitely a good time to get it. They have not raised their price in the last year, but that we cannot guarantee that will keep happening. They have removed some of their discounts. They only have the $150 off on the 3-month supply. I would highly recommend, if you are looking to get a big amount, definitely the 3-month supply, I would get it now rather than later, because that would be, of course, 12 weeks supply for $150 off. So again, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. You end up helping our channel. They end up sending us a commission of any purchase, and that helps us as an independent, and it helps you with a discount. So make sure to go check it out. They have everything from iodine pills to emergency gadgets to survival books, because you will not have a Google to look this stuff up. That's, again, marfooglenews.com/prep. Thank you for everybody that ends up going over there. Also, thank you everybody that has already purchased. Crazy L, thank you. I appreciate your support. And then Monica Buerma, I think that's how you say it. Thank you from Australia, all the way from down under. Thank you for supporting. And then D. Impulse 79 says, the Bible tells us all that is coming. Trust him. The word is full of deception and lies, but not with the Most High. No fear here. # Book of Revelation. Yes. Most definitely. Love the little emojis you put with that too. Strong man. And then we have Russian amphibious ships arrive in captured Ukrainian city. Dex, do you want to go over, of course, the amphibious ships, which we've talked about much about these kind of ships recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about when these ships took off, right? We were covering them when the amphibious ships, and many of them were leaving and heading into around the Mediterranean and into the Black Sea, and then up to the Sea of Azov, right? Well, now that the city of Marfoogle, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is basically under control of Russia, they're now comfortable bringing those ships in, bringing them into land. So those ships are now coming all the way in, and will now be part of that port at the in that city.
Yeah, but they're just horribly failing, even though now they have their 6 amphibious ships pulling into port. Don't know if they're exactly failing, but it depends on how you look at this. I think that if anything, they were holding back because most of us, everybody said when this first started that Russia's just going to steamroll over them. And the big worry was that after they take Ukraine, there was no question that there was going to be, even if Ukraine pulled a Patriot Mel Gibson move, that they would be able to survive an onslaught from Russia. Russia seems to be controlling ports now and bringing in these ships. We talked about it when these 6 amphibious ships left before the first invasion. We looked at what ours was doing. If you look at the signs and see what we predicted then, that means everything is going exactly how all of us saw it. We saw those amphibious go through the English Channel, and then we knew that that was going to be a part of this bigger thing. We called, that this is going to be an invasion. We even called that the first time when they did the practice run of bringing 100,000 troops to the border. Now, what is next? Well, they are now practicing and doing a drill for almost everything that is going to happen. So think about what is happening in We'll talk about that in a minute. There's a massive cyber attack. They did an exact drill for that in December 9th of 2021. Think about that. Guess what else they've done? A massive drill where the U.S. loses all power and grid down and cyber attack and banking, financial institutions and everything. They've done that. So I hope that everything doesn't play out as we think it is, because hopefully we are horrifically wrong. Kenny Cams showing love to the fam. Thank you. Paul, howdy from Texas. Paul, thank you so much. Says Russian forces in Ukraine look set close to another day of fighting at the very best, having made limited new gains. In the meantime, they continue to target a number of encircled cities to routine air, missile, and artillery strikes, which has led to hundreds of civilian casualties and driven millions more from their homes. Today, Russian warships arrived at Berdyansk, an occupied city on the Sea of Azov, what is situated near the key port of Mariupol. It says, which remains in Ukrainian hands. Local authorities in Mariupol, which has been subjected to particularly brutal siege for more than a week now, said today that a convoy of civilians had finally been able to safely flee the area. So they say that, sorry about that, folks. That triggers sometimes when we switch over. Sorry about that. So they say that it's still in Ukrainian hands. That's kind of... So they're willing to pull up even though Ukrainians military is still there. Dex, what do you think about that? As far as
obviously they've got it to a point where they feel like they have enough control or enough, or maybe they need more, so they're pulling in to help finish it off. But it seems like they're not just necessarily going to pull up unless they either want to risk the ships. Or they feel comfortable that they can bring them in and, take control of that port.
Jeez. Well,
but they did claim they captured it a while back. So, right.
Yeah. So who do we believe? They say, Western media says that, but they still have control over it. But yet, why wouldn't they have some artillery and just target those ships that are coming in? They're right there. Even the videos that they've shown, you can see it. If you can see it, you can hit it with artillery. And Ukraine supposedly has these things that can go miles. So I don't see how, if you can see it right out in the bay, that it can't be attacked. Maybe they have a defense that can just hit it right out of the air. I don't know.
Well, nonetheless, we see a picture of them coming in, and this is reported from the Drive, and the Drive covers a lot of, the conflict zone or war zone, if you want to call it. That's their name, but that's part of the Drive. And they do a decent job covering specific military stuff. They tend not to jump into the sensationalization. I don't know. That's my opinion because I follow who it is. But the photograph is there, and presumably, that's more telling that they're actually there as opposed to why they're there or if they're coming in under heat or if they're coming in, in a much easier fashion.
I guess we will see. By the way, I just wanted to, later on it talks about man pads. It says the skies over Ukraine continue to be contested even after more than 2 weeks. Ukrainian forces are still employing ground-based air defenses, including shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, also known as man-portable air defense systems, or man-pads. Yes, man-pads. And then we have Russia-Ukraine Parliament of NATO country Estonia calls for immediate establishment of no-fly zone. We've talked about how all of Twitter is calling for no. In fact, let me pull up real quick. By the way, Gone Girl 777, I just woke up. This is becoming a pattern. Hit the PayPal, folks. Much love, Adam Dex, Wives and Fugle fame. Gone Girl, you said it. I did not. Thank you, Gone Girl, for your massive support. No one needs to do that. I do appreciate everybody that does go over and support. Especially you, Gone Girl 777. Thank you for being here for I want to say 4 years now. So thank you, everybody. There's a ton of people that have been here with me since I was in my car doing videos on my break. So thank you, everybody. I love you guys. I appreciate you. And then bipartisan calls ramp up on President B. So wait. Oh, before I move on, let's go over here. So let's look up hashtag close the sky over Ukraine. Okay, so this is a trending tag where for 2 days straight it was like at the very top. Okay, so you see everybody is chanting for them to close the sky over Ukraine. And I see both points here. Most people are saying, hey, look at the people that are there. They're in there and they're just, creaming them, and they're just hurting all these civilians and everything else, and we need to go in. What people do not realize, and I'm telling you from the context, you can tell that people do not know what that means. They think that it just means that the air traffic control won't allow planes to go above, or that, they're just going to close the airspace. Closing the airspace and enforcing it means that U.S. and NATO jets will be going in. So if a Russian plane flies over Ukraine, then we go in and we attack it. It's not like they're going to go, if they try to escort, a Russian plane will attack it. If either plane attacks the other, it is conflict. It is WW3 immediately. So I'm not saying if this is really going down how it is, I would say it too. I would say, hey, close this thing and go in there, and how about we just, crush Russia off the face of the planet? But that's not there. Nobody knows the true what's going on here, and people are calling for something they don't even realize is WW3. Like if the translation is start WW3 if you close the sky over Ukraine, and it seems like there's a social media kind of a push. They're trying to get people to support this. They're trying to tell you that everybody else is behind this. They are getting people emotionally involved in this. So all of TikTok and all of Twitter is calling for it, like, close the skies over Ukraine. But nobody says what it actually is. They just say we need to close the skies because they're just getting pummeled. But nobody mentions, by the way, this will also start WW3. Am I wrong, Dex? If we go in and enforce a no-fly zone, that is WW3.
Yeah, and so these calls, everybody wants it, right? Everybody's asking for, well, I say everybody, but a lot of people are asking for it. But it's sort of it's an instant, it's an instant escalation. If we, or if anyone of NATO goes in and says, okay, we're going to name the entire country of Ukraine and all, and ranges within the borders of NATO as no-fly zones, and then we're going to patrol them and enforce them. That's a huge step in escalating the conflict. And it may happen at some point, but I mean, that's a big step. I mean, that's literally going to take it from, just being a Russia-Ukraine thing to being a Russia-NATO issue.
Jeez, there is just. Why would you have to put this out? Why would you have to put stuff like this out? Okay, first of all, I said it on Twitter the other day. I said there was a piece by the Associated Press that was fact-checking the claims that was going on up here, right? And it essentially said that there are the places that make it, that they're not secret, and they're not run. They're just completely funded by the U.S., but they are not run by the U.S. But they called them baseless, but then proceeded to say all of this stuff that gives it a base. I don't think that people understand what the word baseless means. Baseless means there's no grounds, absolutely no reason that people would think that. But yet there's literal admissions, and they say that there's all of these different places that make things and do that kind of research. So I'm just kind of like, what are you talking about? And when they have to put out PSAs like this, it's kind of like, hello, wake up, people. And then they attached it to that letter, right? They attach it to that, and now all of a sudden, everybody thinks it's tinfoil hat town, right? Just like the theory that it was made in China, right? That theory got a lot of people kicked off, and then, those people never got put back after they found out that it was. Or at least confirmed that that's not crazy. And then you see this kind of stuff. Elderly couple confront armed Russian soldiers. First of all, they're not there to take out what? And then it shows them walking away, and the elderly couple is following them. But yeah, and then just close the sky over Ukraine. Why attach that? Obviously, they're doesn't make too much sense. That doesn't have anything to do with jets flying in and booming them, right? You would think that they would show a picture of something that happened because of a jet, close sky over Ukraine. Makes sense, right? And then, of course, bipartisan calls ramp up on President B to give Ukraine jets. So this is also a thing that Russia said it was a red line. We don't know what really happened here. They said that we would be giving jets through Poland to go give them that, and then that he actually vetoed that, President B, and said no. Now there is both sides of the aisle saying, we need to give them jets. Dex, do you want to comment on this?
Well, this is like the lighter version of a no-fly zone, right? In both scenarios, you're creating an escalation that's very serious, right? But this one seems to be a little less. So a lot of people are trying to jump on this one and say, look, if we could send javelins in, why can't we send jets in? And I think, the military came back and said, well, there's really no way to transport them. We can't just like have U.S. or NATO pilots jump in the cockpits and fly them across the border, because then they're entering the airspace. So I think, that's part of it, but also part of it is probably the type of horsepower this equipment has, so to speak, that it's much higher, highly sought after than something like, javelins or whatever, which may be a little lower on the totem pole, so to speak. So, this is probably a better option than a no-fly zone, which would, take us to a whole new level. But I think there's a lot of questions about how they would actually implement this. Some people have suggested bringing, Ukraine pilots over and then letting them get in them and fly them back. And then, of course, it's the other part of it is it's been like a NATO hot potato, right? Nobody wants to be the one that says, yeah, they come out of my country. As a matter of fact, Poland was the one that was going to give them up. They didn't want to at first. And then the U.S. begged them to do it. And then they turned around and said, okay, we'll do it, but we're going to give them to you and you give it to them. And we're going to give it to you in Germany. We don't want them in our country. You're going to send them from another country. because nobody wants it. They don't want to be the ire of have Putin's bullseye put right on them. So that's kind of, it's a sticky situation, right? It really is when it comes to moving these planes in, not only physically moving them in, but also what it means from an escalation standpoint, and then who takes the responsibility, right? Because if something does escalate, the first thing that happens is retaliation, and that retaliation is probably going to be directed directly at whoever started it.
Yeah, whatever country ends up being the last one to hold the potato, the NATO potato. Now, this piece, Dex, also, this is something me and you have personally talked about on air and off air, about supplies essentially going and drying up, and specific supplies like gas masks, biological events. We showed you the DHS all of a sudden wanted wearable radiation detectors. They wanted a broadband walkie-talkie system. They wanted rapidly deployable checkpoints. They wanted a mass fatality tracking system. All of these things they wanted submitted, and an idea on how to mass produce them by December 5th, 2021. And so it's already happened. And now they are most likely producing these things with small companies. This is essentially a sign that all of these have dried up, that a ton of people are buying. The demand is incredible. And it's most likely, I guess it's a byproduct of also the media saying that we're possibly going to have chemical events happening, right? What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think, there's a couple of pieces here. Everything is centered on Europe in the sense that that's where a lot, and we've heard it from other communities that have talked about it. We've talked to our own suppliers, and we've talked to our own affiliates that we work with who produce, preparedness gear and things like that. And when it comes to PPE, that stuff is being ordered in significant quantities to go to either what you would think of as an NGO type organizations, or other types of organizations that are ordering them in large amounts over into Europe. And then, as well as, I would think, population demand. So there's probably a lot of importers or exporters that are trying to bring them over too, because the population is going after them as well. Imagine if you lived in a border country with what's happening there, with the threat of this happening, you're probably really on the edge of making sure you've got anything you possibly need from a preparedness point of view. So there's sort of a, you can call it a shortage, but there's really just a massive influx of PPE type stuff, anything that's chemical related, gas mask related, et cetera, that is flowing into Europe right now, to the point where it's hard to get stuff here. If you try to buy something, you may not get it, or you may be waiting for a long time. I mean, we see waits on other technology that's harder to produce. In this case, these are relatively simple to produce, and they've always been sort of plentiful, but now they're not. Now they're just gone, and people are waiting up to 4 weeks or more to get a gas mask. Now, I know a lot of the Fugel fam probably isn't, because I think it was now 3 years ago when we made that one video talking about the upcoming pandemic, and we told people to go get them. We put a link up to gas masks, and everybody shamed us for it, but we were on the money then for a totally different reason. But if you got them back then you're probably not in that boat. But a lot of people are looking and can't find these products.
Some of our Fugel fam sent me a screenshot. One is getting a full mask for themselves, their wife, and their small child. They're waiting until August of this year, so that is now five months out. So that is what they have been told, and they went to 3 different companies, and that was the fastest that they said they could promise, guaranteed, getting one. Now, you could probably go to one of these places at Amazon and pay 10 times the price or something and get one, but they wanted to pay what they're actually priced. I don't know. I haven't even checked. We have some basic ones, but we wanted to get the actual official ones for kids, and they're incredibly hard to source right now. So it's pretty even scary to think about even having to use them. I didn't know if you wanted to. I didn't ask you off air, but did you want to share what you helped somebody do this weekend or no?
Yeah, I was helping a family member get their what I guess you would account to their fallout shelter prepared and ready, and making sure that they had their supplies and what they needed, and helping them think through what they would want to have for a couple of weeks stay indoors in a basement, basically, a concrete area of a basement, and what that was gonna look like, right? And helping them go through that mental process and that inventory of what would they need for at least 2 weeks, right? To deal with a fallout scenario.
Yeah, it's not a fun thing. It's a taboo thing. People get mad if you even mention it. They're like, it's not going to happen. I think that's out of fear. Most of it is out of fear. People don't want to think about it. People want to say that it's fear-mongering, but if it's even a slight possibility, you're watching a prepper community channel. So we're going to prep for stuff like that, even if it's a 1%. We will prep over the idea of scenarios that might never happen. I'm sure there are preppers out there that prepare for an alien invasion or a meteor hitting in their yard. It doesn't matter. You prepare for the unlikely, and when it does happen, you are better off than most people. There are certain scenarios that are way more likely, and this is one of them, and I think that we have taken everything for granted. We have taken power for granted. We have taken food for granted. We have taken the fact that you can just turn on your sink and get water. Now, it might not be the best water. It might have chlorine in it, but most of it's drinkable at this point. You will not have water. You will not have a bathtub to just take a shower if everything hits the fan. You will not have a grocery store down the street where you can just go buy fresh vegetables. You will have to either grow it yourself or have a stockpile. That's just how it works. And then before we go into so I'm going to show you this word. If I say is with a Z, that is what I mean. The is country, right? And then let's see here. Let's find the other one. And if I say I ran to the store is this, right? Ran to the store says missile attack. And then rack it up, okay? Now we've got to rack it up, or rack, okay? Before we go on to that, I do want to remind you right now, if there's a waiting list right now to get your hands on an energy solar generator. If you're going to get a solar generator, most people want to get one that they absolutely know is guaranteed a good quality product. There is an Energy Flex 1500 running our entire show here because we will not lose power and stop a show. Even if we lose power, we can still continue running. My router, both power bars, all of my music gear, all of my lighting, everything you see behind is all powered off of one Flex 1500. We have done this. We're in the process of getting more batteries for our personal use and more solar panels. So this is a solar generator. It's silent. When you do have an SHTF situation happen, if you have a regular generator, that is awesome. But a regular generator can be affected. Also, if you do not have gas and you are trying to locate gas, that is going to become a huge problem. Whereas a solar generator, as long as you have a solar panel and a solar generator, not only can you charge this from the wall, but you can charge it from the sun. As long as you have sun, you will have power. On top of that, there will be no loud noise coming from the back of your house letting people know that you have power and they don't. Most people understand why that would be an issue. If you have a loud brrr in the back of your house when the entire world goes to crap, somebody is going to come and try to steal it. When you have a silent solar generator, you can lay low. That is why it is so super, super coveted. Now, Energy makes everything absolutely the top tier, highest quality they can. This is modular, so that means the Flex 1500 is a top base and it has its own feet. But then you have the batteries, which you can actually connect up to 96 of these huge, but I mean, I say that huge, but they're this big. So they are a lot of power in just one. You can link up to 96 of them. So if you wanted to power a mansion for a month, you could buy enough batteries to do that. Or if you just wanted to power your house for a day or 2 days or 4 days, that is what you can do with this. You can also mod it to where they have mods where you can put it in the middle or, of course, somewhere in the stack and add more solar panels. So you can be charging it in the wall, double the panels, double the charging, fast charging, regular charging, solar panel. Essentially, the whole big part about this is how fast you can charge it up to full. And this lets you mod it to where you can charge it as fast or as slow as you want to. You can just set it out there all day and charge it over a while. Or if you are going to be using a lot of power, you'll want to be able to charge it in a short amount of time. The greatest part is, say, if you have a ton of solar panels, you can charge it in, again, if you have one solar panel, you charge it in this amount of time. You have 2 solar panels, you charge it in half that time. They mod it out so you can actually do 4 panels, 6 power, 8 panels. Again, it's an amazing, amazing machine. So make sure to get over there, marfooglenews.com/energy with an I. Use the code Marfoogle and you will help us out at the same time, and it will not cost you an extra cent. Again, go to marfooglenews.com/energy. You will definitely want to get one of these. This is one of the best generators out there. All right, and they make all sorts of stuff for it. All right, now we're going to go into Is. Okay, Is and ran to the store is having some major stuff go down. And I do want to preface all of this with this piece. This was back months ago. It said that Is said to lead a 10-country simulation of a major cyber attack on world markets. Now, Dex, we covered this when this first happened, and when we did, if any of you remember this, we talked about this and we said we predict at some point this will happen in the near future. And that's because when they do these kind of drills, they're doing it for the most likely probable scenario or something that's planned, right?
That's correct.
This
and we always, that's like the best giveaway, right? Is if they're drilling for something you've never heard of, you can almost bet on the fact that you're going to see that in the coming years, that it's something they're planning for and they're expecting to happen, or they're planning for and they're going to make happen.
And they're most definitely this was months ago. This was December 9th, and now it says Is recently led a 10-country 10-day long simulation of a major cyber attack on the world's financial system by sophisticated players with the goal of minimizing damage to banks and financial markets. This was, of course, December 9th that they did this. So this is an older article, right? Now we have Is government hit by massive apparent cyber attack. Remember, this could be practice for the U.S. This could be practice for a much larger one. This could be just the beginning. At any time, something like this could hit the States. It could hit everywhere. Is's Cyber Protection Agency declared a state of emergency Monday as the country's government websites went down in an apparent online attack. A source with the Is's defense forces said that the cyber attack was the largest ever carried out against Is, according to the newspaper Haaretz. The cyber assault took down websites for the nation's interior, health, justice, and welfare ministries, as well as that of the Prime Minister's office. All are pages on the isgov.il domain. As of Monday night, Jerusalem time, some access had reportedly been restored. But again, we don't know what percentage. Is officers suspected that the attack was the work of another country, but told Haaretz that they could not yet determine who was responsible. You can probably take a guess. Government officials said that they were checking with Is Power and water companies to see if they had been affected, though Is's utility websites appeared to be functioning normally. One thing that you can think of, and this is, Dex, this actually happened, as China said that they had a tool that they could access stuff? What if China lent this out to somebody, or what if China gave the information to one of their enemies? Have you thought about that, Dex?
Yeah, it's certainly could be a possibility. There's all sorts of things, and keep in mind a lot of times these hacks could be lying in wait, right? Like they've already done it. They're just sitting there and nobody knows because they haven't actually performed the action yet. They're sitting behind the scenes waiting.
Well,
waiting to jump out, right?
What if they implanted something in their power companies, their water? They're saying, "Oh, were you affected? Oh, okay, everything's running fine." 2 months down the road, when nobody's expecting it, all of a sudden a nationwide blackout is right. So that is something that could happen, or they could, if China was involved, they could have used the new ability they have with their Trojan horse ability. Who knows? Russia supposedly asked China to give it military equipment and support for the conflict in Ukraine. This is what is being claimed by the U.S., which we know most everyone is lying right now. It's pretty clear, like nobody believes almost anything coming out of any media stream, and I don't blame you. I think that everybody, like we talked about earlier, should be discerning everything right now, because this is just this. You have to look at everything in the light of, is this Ganda and Prapa, right?
And this is New York Times.
And again, backed by certain people that have some certain agendas, right? It says Russia has also asked China for additional economic assistance to help counteract the battering of its economy has taken from broad sanctions imposed by the United States and European and Asian nations, according to an official. American officials determined to keep secret their means of collecting the intelligence on Russia's request declined to describe further the kind of military weapons or aid that Moscow is seeking. The officials also declined to discuss any reaction by China to the request. So, by the way, lately, since this has started, the U.S. has admitted that, like, oh, we have this way of getting stuff, right? They even put out at the very beginning, the day of the invasion or the day before, that CIA has been collecting bulk information on people. Well, we all already knew that since the days of Edward Snowden, where they were listening to everything we were saying. This is, by the way, this is why, if you don't want anyone listening to you or tracking everywhere you go, if you are that, get an E-Deck. Well, now they're called off-grid, but you can put your phone in there. Boom. Nobody is tracking you, listening to you, because they can't access even the E911 chip. They can't access it. But this is why. This is why many of us do that, because they don't want people listening and being able to access your stuff. And nowadays, hackers are so good, even just regular people. Never mess with the hackers. They are incredibly powerful nowadays. The hacking community is just, it's its own community, and you don't want to mess with those guys. They are the tough guys of the internet. And then, so do you believe that Russia is asking them for aid? Is this meant to make Russia look weak? In the meantime, they're not actually looking, they're not actually asking for help? Or is this proof that China is now about to get involved? Or is this at least a sign that China is about to get involved? What do you think, Dex? Do you think that China is about to get pulled into this thing?
Well, I certainly suspect that they're going to help with economics, and definitely around the sanctions. I think there's something coming there. It won't even be broadcast. It'll be under the table, right? But, before you know it, there'll be massive oil purchases and or others that are buying through China or through another country that China's setting up to do it, to help, move some of the products that they need to move out of Russia so they can generate revenue. I certainly see that. It'll be interesting how soon China actually, if they even do, jump in from a military point of view with equipment or people. I'd be surprised if it's people. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw equipment come over, but then that would certainly be a telling sign to the state of Russia's military capability if they're having to request equipment from other countries, as if they don't have enough themselves to do what it is they're doing, right? That would not be a good sign, which then lends itself back to, oh, by the way, This is a story coming from the intelligence community, which is not willing to tell anything about their source. And when that just means they could say whatever they want to say. And intelligence communities are all about, not only finding intelligence, but creating narratives and Ganda. So this whole thing could just be nonsense.
Also, as far as, all of this that's going on with China and Russia, as far as China doing these things, you would never know. By the way, they've been setting up for years. Russia has actually given China farmland. So in Russia, China is actually owns land there that was given to them by Russia to purposely farm things that they were importing from the U.S. There was all these signs that Russia and China were trying to exchange different things that they could import from each other and do. And it seems like if you look back, this kind of leads us up to now. It's almost like years ago they knew that these sanctions were coming, so they looked at what would be cut off and they started working with each other on that. Think about it. China definitely wants to be number one, and so does Russia. What if they worked out a deal? They're like, okay, you get that half of the planet, we get this half. India, you can keep what you have, and we'll give you Tibet. Who knows? We don't know. They are the three of them together. Extremely large population-wise, but pretty insane turn of events, if that's true. NATO masses 30,000 troops and 50 warships for huge games near Russia's border. So we talked about this prior. This is the cold weather exercises we were talking about. And now they are kicking off. Today they have kicked off. It says NATO has amassed 30,000 troops and 50 near Russia's border for military exercises risking Mad Vlad's rage. By the way, so I always point out, and I want people to understand how writers do this and how they get approved to write things like this. So when they say Mad Vlad's rage, they're obviously putting a spin on almost everything. Just as they do, the reason I pay attention to it is when they cover anybody. So say they'll cover somebody in our community and they will put conspiracy theorist in the very first words. Or if somebody's trying to put Elon Musk down, they say the very controversial conspiracy theorist Elon Musk. They'll put that in the first sentence before anything else. Wikipedia is the worst because, anybody can edit those, but then there's people that watch it and they change it back to whatever it is, right? And they will make somebody look super bad. Mark Dice, for example, his Wikipedia, they've had fights over it for years now because they just keep making it just super biased, right? But this, they basically have to fit this in every single time they talk about Vladimir anywhere right now. That's how you can tell that it's a massively huge Ganda pump machine. And I'm sure it's the same on their side, right? The drill named Cold Response has kicked off today in Norway amid escalating tensions between Russia and the West over the invasion of Ukraine. It says the exercise includes 30,000 troops from more than 25 countries from Europe and North America, 200 aircraft, and 50 vessels. The largest NATO exercise, which is being held at just a few miles away from the Russian border, was planned long before Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, but its significance has now been heightened. It says this exercise is extremely important for the security of Norway and its allies. We will practice an allied reinforcement of Norway, Norwegian defense minister. Now, they could say this and they could say, oh, it was planned last year, but most of the time you don't get the exact details of what the drill will actually entail. They always have drills year round. So here's a thought about this. They can always take a drill that, in fact, we know from earlier, just a couple weeks ago, they moved a normal drill that happens all year, every year, from the end of the year to the beginning of the year. So they could technically grab something that's traditionally in August and they say, oh, this is the same drill we usually do every year around August. We just moved it up earlier in the year. When they move the drills that are traditionally in the same amount of time, that's where I think they're actually moving troops or doing something and then calling it an exercise so they can move troops. As Bob said, I think it was, one of our callers, he is former military. He says NATO does these drills all the time. But I just wonder if they can move around the drills and make it to where they can put something somewhere and not cause panic. Dex?
Well, Adam, yeah, we do know for a fact that they have moved launches. Since this conflict started, they had scheduled tests of ICBMs and they canceled them. They said, due to the conflict, we don't want to set off anything. So we're intentionally not, doing these ICBM tests, right? So, we saw a few of those last fall, I think, in Florida off of the coast, especially one out of a sub, right? There was a handful of those that went over towards the Bahamas. Those are pretty normal tests, right? And we do them regularly to make sure they fire off land or off of subs and that they work correctly. So they've canceled those and they've said we're not doing them. So they could have, if they thought this was, something that could cause an escalation, they could have, moved it, canceled it, postponed it, or they could have, if they wanted to use it as a sign of strength, they could also move its location. Or keep its location if it happens to be in a location that would be useful for a show of strength, right?
Yep, exactly. Like I believe they just did it recently with a movement that was a normal drill that was supposed to be in a different area. They moved it to the South China Sea. So we've seen that multiple times, and we've covered it every time. That's why we cover all of the drills and exercises. We basically cover almost every military exercise that's public. And then Marfoogle's super secret bunker just subscribed. That is awesome. They made a new account just to put that in there. Which, by the way, I don't have a super secret bunker yet. Too long? Probably. And then we have ran to the store, says missile attack on Rax Ibble targeted is site. Man, that's all three of them in one. Okay, so it said that 12 ballistic missiles were fired on the northern Iraq city of Erbil, causing material damage and wounding 2 civilians. Ran to the store claimed responsibility for the assault, saying it targeted a strategic facility, AFP. Authorities in Iraq's autonomous Kurdish region had earlier said that 12 ballistic missiles rained down on an Erbil in a pre-dawn attack targeting U.S. interests that slightly wounded 2 civilians. I don't know how they slightly wounded. How do you get slightly wounded? Like, I need a Band-Aid. Oh, ballistic missile. Yeah. Can you put a Band-Aid on that? I'm slightly wounded. Oh, what? No, it's not a paper cut. Ballistic missile. Yeah. It hurts. It's right there. You see it? There's actually a cut there. Ballistic missile. The paper cuts came from beyond Iraq's eastern border. Kurdistan's Counter-T unit announced, in effect, saying that they were fired from Ran to the store, a nation which wields considerable political and economic influence over Baghdad. Rand's Revolutionary Guards later confirmed that they fired the projectiles, claiming that they were targeting sites used by IS, a top ally of the U.S. A strategic center for conspiracy and mischiefs was targeted by powerful precision missiles fired by the IS Revolutionary Guards Corps, the Guards said in a statement. So, by the way, when this first happened, everybody was freaking out saying, oh, if this is, if they actually did it, if Ran says we are the ones behind it, that would be a big deal. Dex, even remember I texted you and basically we looked it up and we're like, okay, well, it's not at a very first, a day before it came out that it was them. It was like, well, it makes a huge difference. One, if it actually hit the U.S. Embassy, and two, if it was them or backed separatists or backed groups, right?
Yeah, because we hear about, like, I used to be all the time, but even now we probably hear at least once a quarter, maybe twice a quarter, we would hear about, a boom boom going off here or something going off there. And then the people would blame Rand to the store. But and at the end of the day, it was like, rebels in Iraq that did it, but just happened to be sided with them, right? So it wasn't like it was literally the nation on the other side of the border doing it across the border, right? And so this was, and I think I told you, I said, well, it makes a big difference if it came from across the border, and it did, right? So that's part of it. And then the other part is who it was actually targeting. I think, I'm pretty sure I read that base or that location, the consulate or whatever, is empty. We haven't actually moved into it. It was under construction, or it was mostly done, but hadn't moved in yet. And it wasn't even hit. It was just nearby. And so allegedly they're saying that the target wasn't that. It was, this is organization.
A strategic center for conspiracy and mischiefs of the Z-ness. That's what they said. That was their quote. Let me highlight that so you can see that. Which may be a good way to describe it, I think.
And some would call that the group that begins with Mo and ends with
Sod.
I'm sad, right? Or yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, so we'll see, right? Yeah, but people really thought, oh, it's WW3 when they said they claimed responsibility. But then, of course, it comes out that it didn't injure anybody and it wasn't aimed at this. So they could be lying. Maybe it was at the U.S. Embassy. Maybe this is like everybody said, oh, we're just going to pretend like it didn't happen and say it was something over here or something over here. You never know. That's why you just got to keep paying attention to the patterns. All right, and then speaking of what I was talking about earlier, if you don't know about Off-Grid, make sure to go check them out. You can actually get the bag or the duffel bag or the smaller packages, which actually hold phones, tablets, anything else. You can even get a smaller one like this that will just hold a cell phone. These bags, originally this company was making them for different agencies like FBI for evidence bags, so nobody could hack into, say, an evidence laptop or something. They also used it for the agents so they could put it in so bad actors couldn't hack into their stuff. And then they opened up to the public, and they actually renamed themselves as Off-Grid. They're essentially they're almost like, they feel like a Kevlar vest. They have incredible materials, but they're absolutely amazing. Make sure to go check them out. It's called Off-Grid. And essentially, you cannot be tracked, traced, or listened to when your devices are in these things. They make bags. The backpack is one of the most badass things. Again, amazing products, very high quality. If you've ever had a really, really nice camera bag, a camera backpack, that's what I would compare this to as far as the materials. As far as, just on a whole nother level, even if as a normal backpack, this thing is just like, it lasts years and years and years and years. Also, when your stuff is in the certain compartments, it's also protected against other kind of events like electromagnetic. As far as the duffel bag, the whole lining of the main pocket is a big EMP Faraday bag. So make sure to go check it out, marfooglenews.com/offgrid. You get a discount with this if you use the code Marfoogle. There's all sorts, and there's even a windowed ones where you can actually access your phone at the same time. So if you are driving somewhere, you don't want somebody to follow your location, but you still need to access your text or something, they make a version of this bag that has a window that you can touch screen through. Anthony Nicholson says, how about everything NATO country gets one MiG-29 to give Ukraine from their land, then Putin has to target all of NATO? Gets one. Oh, I get what you're saying. Oh, every NATO country gives one MiG, so everybody's getting everybody. So then, if he's going to attack somebody, it's going to be everybody. Well, either way, it's the same. That's the same though. If one country, because if he attacks one, you attack all. That's their credo, right? Stephen McMahon says, I remember Adam in his car and the break room. I knew he'd go places. Thank you, Stephen McMahon. I thank you for believing in me. I appreciate that. Paul Thomas, thank you for subscribing. And everybody else that has popped in tonight. Over on DLive, Moxie71, thank you. Marf Dex Mods and Foogle Fam, thank you. Lead Dispenser, thank you. Texas Rob 49. Listen to Adam and Dex. They know they are the bee's knees. Bee's knees for sure. Thank you for that. Texas Rob 49. Thank you for gifting out 10 badges to 10 different people. Texas Rob is definitely owed a thank you from Zuby 360, Blowtorch Barbie, 100% Mo, Wake Up, You Are Asleep, MRSA 1, WJS Jen, Bear Claws, West of the West, Justin Sawyer. Everybody just got a badge from Texas Rob. Thank you, Texas Rob 49. In the near future, I'm going to be doing a DLive only show again. We haven't done one in a while. I want to do one because I feel like the DLive crew has stuck through just thick and thin, and I appreciate it. So also, I think it will be cool if everybody comes over there for a show or two. So, Dex, there is some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, you're missing out if you don't go to our website. You've got to go check out the rest of the story. So go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and then scroll down and look for web-only content. Or if you're on YouTube, open that description and click show notes. It's the first link. And by the way, every video has show notes. But the main shows like this, the big shows, we produce a bunch of different content that is sometimes too hot for TV. It's subjects that might, not be appropriate here, or it's too far to one side, or any political coverage tends to fall into that category. So you can go find out the rest of the story. Literally an entire show's worth of content is in there. So go take a look, find out what's happening to everyone's favorite doctor, and or what Rand is trying to do. Some more stuff about the politics and the people running, such as the former administrator, former president. Other things happening, including Amazon relocating out of Seattle. I wonder why. Well, you can find out. Go take a look. It's there. And updates on Keystone. There's one we hadn't heard from in a while, but now they're talking. So go take a look. Oh, and by the way, another former president now has the CV, and you probably heard it because that hit every mainstream outlet, but that's in there too. So if you don't know, you're missing out. Go take a look. marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show. Scroll down to that web-only content. On YouTube, open that description and click on show notes. When you're done reading that, boom, there it is. The contest for EMP Shield. I think there's a handful of days left. Still worth trying to enter. So go there. You can enter daily. You've got multiple ways to enter. I think it's 9 days left. So between your first set of entries and then the next 9 days, you can come back and enter again. You still have lots of chances. It only takes the right entry to win. So go there. If you're looking for an EMP Shield and you want to get in on this, it's so great when Andrew does this for us. So that's the location. It's on the main show at the bottom, just below the web-only content.
Thank you, Dex, and thank you for your service. I appreciate you. And again, we will see you tomorrow. Dex, thank you so much.
Thank you. Much love, brother. Great show.
It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Go to find the button. Everybody gonna go overhead up to Marfoogle, yeah. Peter Schultz in a surgical tech prepper in a Marfoogle super secret bunker, Paul Thomas and Gone Girl Triple 7. I love you. Walk it out, everybody know the jam bomb, oh why, oh why. We the West in the Jam Valley, and the Garden of Total Empathy, and the LCJC family, that Gen X2, Poke Nana and the Pamela, and the Watchman, Bear Lover 92, Corbin, Magnus, Love, French, Brittany, and a WISGN. We united our circle of the question, going jungle jam. Walk, walk, walk it out, talk it out. Walk, walk it out, talk it out. With the Jamie on the Miller and the ball in the gold in the Rega's and the Ivan Mermaid, Ebenezer Stone in the Christine Gay and the Marfoogle Super League Bronker. Don't forget to get a bunker people in the Sean Samuels and Shelby. I'm an Occam's Razor, Conquest Job, and the elbow cough and every involved. Walk, walk it out, talk it out. Buckling and the old rider in the dance paladin and the T-Rex cakewalker. And a man you hate when you think your phone is charging and you realize it ain't plugged in. Walk it out, talk it out. Walk it out, talk it out. Got the Jimmy on the air, Arizona, all. Texas, Rob, 40 man is all. Free on the Nest and the Brian Keith. West of the West and the Charlie on the P. Oh, Charlie Abercrombie United Circle. The Question and the Dairy Queen, everybody purple. All the cuff news and the Carolyn Winkle. Old writer, everybody knows it's a single. Kevin on the fence and Mrs. Crypto. Neural weapons, everybody knows. Oh, walk it out, talk it out. Walk it out, talk it out. Everybody getting silly. By the CIA, now the Taliban got a little better aim. Give them drones, give them jet planes, give them Humvees, hell, give them everything. Afghanistan armed by the CIA, now the Taliban got a little better aim. Give them drones, give them jet planes, give them Humvees, hell, give them everything. Afghanistan armed by the CIA, now the Taliban got a little better aim. Give them drones, give them jet planes, give them Humvees, hell, give them everything. Daddy Peter on the show, give them jet planes, give them Humvees, help, give them everything. Afghanistan armed by the CIA, now the Taliban.